Hey everybody, it's Heavy Gear Craig again, back here at Bookery Fantasy Games for another game of Heavy Gear Blitz with my regular opponent Josh. Today I am going to be fielding 1,000 points of Earth, and Josh will be fielding 1,000 points of Southern Republicans.
He turned it off.
Alright, here's a look at the Earth forces. We have Flail Infantry, my new Flail Infantry from DreamPod9.com, DP9.com, excuse me. Then we have a Rapid Recon Hover Tank Squad, a Heavy Frame Squad, and an Interdiction Frame Squad. Yes, that is an airstrike over there. We're going to give it a shot today too. While the Southern Forces have a tank cadre with a heavy Visigoth tank and a light Hun tank.
Twin-link snub cannon.
Twin-link snub cannons on the Hun there. Excuse me, on the Visigoth. Then we've got a strike squad, pretty regular for the Southern Republic, recon and infantry, and looks like they're going to be bringing some bunkers to the party. Then we have our setup here with a green lush side and a rocky deserty side of the river, and looks like this is going to be just a regular fight for survival. My missions are to break through into Josh's deployment zones, to assassinate the combat group leader of the strike squad, and to keep him out of my deployment zone with a blockade. What have you got for missions, Josh?
My objectives are blockade you from getting into my deployment zone, scout something that has yet to be determined, and recon your recon hover tanks.
Okay, let's determine what needs to be scouted. It has been determined that the scout objective will be the storage center, almost all the way at the back of my deployment zone, which should make my blockade interesting.
11 and a 3.
Alright, so let's get deployed and start this thing going.
Ah, there's a 3.
Alright, here's our deployment. We're spread pretty lengthwise. Over here on the Southern Republican side, he's got his recon squad spread out with iguanas spaced pretty evenly. I think they're going to try and push through into my zone and scout the objectives. His army commander hiding way back here in the back, keeping himself safe. Then the tanks are holding in front of the bridges, backed by the strike squad. Over here we've got the bunkers perched high with infantry inside their buildings. Facing off against the Earth on a broad front push. Let's roll for initiative. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 1. It was long and bloody, very long. Where to start? Wow. Well, we started the turn out with the heavy frame squad, putting some damage on, a little bit of smackdown on an iguana. They overkilled him with a light laser cannon.
I should have said that sooner.
They also put a missile into the Hun light tank, which did some damage. The Hun was later finished off by the Interdiction Squad's heavy Gatling laser cannons. Not that it didn't draw its own bite, it critically damaged one of the flail frames. Another one of the frames was damaged by the Visigoth. And over there, pretty much my Interdiction Squad got pretty messed up this turn. Lost several flail infantry to incoming rounds. The Hun, as I said, was taken out by lasers, but was not overkilled, so it's going to stick around. Then at the end of the turn, we had artillery come down, which did some damage and stunned a couple guys. The anti-gear rifle and light mortar armed infantry in the buildings has been doing damage as well. They accounted for most of my flail wounds. And the recon hover tanks came to a quick stop behind a hill to keep themselves from moving into the open, because the fire in the open over here is getting pretty deadly. So that's it for turn 1. We're going to move on to turn 2. Josh is letting the voices in his head give him sound tactical advice.
It's just me thinking and debating it.
Okay, we're gonna call in the airstrike now in turn 2. I've got to make a leadership test versus a threshold of 5. My commander's leadership is a 3, so I'm rolling 3 dice. And I get a 6. It is a successful call for the airstrike. Okay, so here we have the airstrike coming in on the side because I made my successful leadership roll, and he's going to come in at an angle towards the enemy, and he moves 6 to 18 inches at a time before he can make a turn. So let's go for our first group. Okay, so he's moved forward and banked. He's going to come across and strafe along Josh's line, and now we're going to move him forward and do some attacks. And there's more 6s, so he can ignore it too. So the airstrike leaves the board, having wiped out 1 Mamba, an Iguana, damaged the Sidewinder. More importantly though, it did kill my assassination objective. Well worth its value time on the board. Okay, so that's it for turn 2. We saw the airstrike doing its deeds by eliminating an Iguana, the strike squad's commanding Black Mamba, and damaging the rest of the strike squad, who also took a little bit more damage from the artillery strike that was aimed at him right there. Did a box each to each of them. Over here, the Visigoth was killed by combined effort between the flail infantry and the entire interdiction frame squad. They were just able to plink it to death with their Gatling lasers, excuse me. The last remaining member of the strike squad, a Sidewinder, was overkilled by some laser damage, so he's out of there. And that's going to be all of our deaths. Oh well, we took some flails dying all over the place. And then there was the Mamba, the Iguana, so they can get pulled off too. And we're going to go on to turn 3. Okay, here we are into turn 3, and they're starting to move fast now. The last remaining members of the strike squad were brought down by lasers from the frames. A lot of lasers, actually. There's a big push, as you can see, headed towards the deployment zone of the Southern Republic. Over here, the Iguana moved forward to recon the building objective, but was killed by the command car, who came under fire from infantry and took damage. More importantly, though, the infantry managed to actively detect, through a series of activations and command points, both command cars. They ran them out of actions on their blocking electronic warfare. They also kept me from getting extra command points. That was actually a good move on his part, using up all those actions. So now Josh is dug in with his infantry and his bunkers, and I still got a little bit of ways to go here, because I've got a lot of damaged units that his units can still put a smackdown on. But we'll see. On to turn 4. Okay, it's the end of turn 4. We're making our push farther into the southern deployment zone. It is getting pretty bloody. I have lost some more flails. He was overkilled by some incoming weapons fire. The infantry have been doing their job up there in that building, keeping the fire on, and the bunkers have definitely paid for themselves. The turrets have paid for themselves. They have destroyed quite a bit. So that's how we look. Down to the last remnants of the push, on to turn 5. Here we go. Okay, this is turn 5. It's all over now, except the smoking. The push took a lot of damage as it entered into the Southern Republic's deployment zone. Lost a lot of guys. All the flails got wiped out. But we succeeded in our breakthrough. for what would normally be 2 victory points, but remained 1 because they still had enemies within their deployment zone. So that's 1 victory point for the Earth. They managed to do their assassination of the combat group leader strike squads for 2, total of 2 victory points. While as the Republic did not succeed in their blockade of the deployment zone, they did recon the command cars, so that got them 2, and they failed in their scout, so they also got 2. So after all this bloodshed, fighting, tears, dying, it came out to be a tie. Good game.
Good game.
All right. So, this is Heavy Gear Guy Craig. I'm Craig. That's Josh. That's Heavy Gear. We will see you later.